So the design team is here in Madagascar.
Oh.
I want to point that out. It's
Wow.
me and Rizza, the
Okay.
guy with whom I work with. Milan is just communication, marketing, commercial.
Okay. So we're back with Eileen. Thank you again for having us here today. You created a company called Made for Women, which designs and makes bags and accessories mainly made of raffia. And in 2021, you received the Best Commitment Award during the 5th edition of Better World Fund. At 20 years old, you're certainly started to make a name for yourself in the fashion world. But I guess just like every business owner, you've been through a lot of thoughts before making it happen.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come up with the idea and values that lay behind the brand name Made for a Woman?
So I think from a very young age, I've always been super sensitive to the concept of poverty. I never really accepted it, and living in one of the poorest countries in the world, where you see a contrast, a difference in status that is uncomprehendable, to be honest. I never truly accepted that, and I grew up with a mother who has her own foundation, who works in the whole social aspect, and I grew up in orphanages, in hospitals, so I've always been really sensitive to this whole aspect of giving back and trying to understand that everyone's happiness is important rather than being selfish and prioritizing some individuals over others. And then I've always had a huge interest in fashion. I really enjoy the whole part behind the scene. I like the savoir-faire. I like colors. I like the psychological aspect of fashion, understanding that every morning you wake up and you choose something that represents who you want to be in the world today. And I think it has a huge impact on every single individual, whether we accept it or not. Mm-hmm. And fashion is the third most employed industry in the world. So it has a huge impact on individuals, especially in developing and underdeveloped countries. So I think, you know, making a difference or being able to bring your, your utopian vision in the fashion industry is able to make a lot of changes in a lot of lives. And so, I mean, I've always, for some reason, always knew I wanted to do this from a very young age. It's my destiny, it's my path, I don't know. But it's been very clear. My vision has been very, very clear. I studied business. I studied fashion. I did corporate social responsibility, global communication. I worked with a company in India that was dedicated to haute couture. So I've had a lot of, experience in this world. And then so in 2019, when I finished my studies, I wanted to do this and become an entrepreneur without knowing everything behind it and how hard it is. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, we'll later in the podcast, we'll go through the main challenges that you faced as an entrepreneur. The fact that most of your workforce are women that have a difficult background, they come from underprivileged, they have an underprivileged status. What's the process behind the enrollments? Like, how do you reach to them in the first place? How do you train them? What really goes in this whole thing?
So, as we know, unfortunately, 80% of the population in Madagascar is underprivileged. Mm-hmm. So already you're dealing with unprivileged all the time. Mm-hmm. But I think what I wanted to do is, so my idea was to really create a convention with the Minister of the Population, who works directly with unprivileged individuals and marginalized individuals. And what we do is that through them, we also work with different associations such as the Handicapped Association, sex workers, prisoners, single mothers, GBV survivors. And during our low season, we through them, they send us their most vulnerable individuals, which then we give them an intensive formation course in different techniques for 2 months. At the end, they receive a certificate. We have a small party where we give them back their dignity. We show the importance that they are to us and to society. And then we work with them throughout the year. And through that, so it's not easy to work with individuals who have gone through a lot of abuse, physical and also mental abuse. And this is why we decided to really create an atelier of 360 degrees where we work with doctors, psychologists, professors, dancers. We have a childcare area where all of our women's children can come on a daily basis, where we have a child, professor. So we've really created an atmosphere where not only do we offer, financial support that goes above living wage, but we also give emotional and psychological support.
Well, that's truly amazing. I think one of the main things that deeply touched my heart when I made my first research about you and your company is that right now you have approximately how many people working for you?
Like 300.
300. Each of these individuals have had a tough past, just like you mentioned. And somehow I think that's one of the things that differentiates you from the many other companies that may exist in the fashion world is that you, as a business owner, I guess you feel somehow connected to these people, because I don't know how the process goes, but you must hear most of the stories. You hear them like the struggle that they've been through, and the chance that you give them, I think, is such a tremendous opportunity for them to leave the space of poverty and hope for a better future. I think this is just awesome. Earlier this year, you worked on a design for a special tribute for Giorgio Armani, where you combine materials that here are codes pay homage to your multicultural background. How your personal story influences the way you create your products.
So I'm half Italian, half Indian, but I grew up in Madagascar. I think the Italian aesthetics is renowned worldwide as being high quality. So I grew up in an environment where, aesthetics and beauty is important. Growing up I was born in Milan. I did my studies in Milan. Beauty is important, and you get away with a lot in life through beauty. And then there's my whole Indian aspect, which is very spiritual and very cultural and very rich in colors and tradition. And then there's Madagascar, where is the savoir-faire of the basics of this company. It's true that I represent the company, but if it wasn't for them, how would I ever be able to produce anything? I don't know how to do this personally. So I think all these worlds, so through my sensibility and my spirituality and my aesthetics, and the workforce, the manual dexterity work in Madagascar, I'm able to create this atmosphere and these products that are the idea is to be innovative in design, and always find new techniques, because raffia is such a versatile fiber. It has so much potential. It's amazing how much I've learned through raffia. So I think it's so beautiful, and I think through this Madagascar can really, really shine.
I don't know about you, but back when I was in college, when I was due to write an essay, for example, I used to spend a couple of hours straight writing it. And by the end of it, I'd feel pretty satisfied by the quality of my work. But then comes tomorrow morning and I have another look at what I wrote. And 80% of the time, I'd feel like the quality isn't there. My work was actually not good at all. You have a business that is about fashion creation. Do you have an in-house process for validating the designs that you guys work on, or do you just go with your guts, and then when you think something is beautiful, and then, well, it's just validated.
So I think it's like continuous research all the time. Is understanding trends, going to fairs, understanding what's in, what's not, what you what you can do, what you cannot do, or well, I don't like to say cannot do because nothing is not possible. But so I think we're still a pretty new company, growing kind of fast. So we're putting in procedures slowly. But I think most of the time it really comes from like my intuition, my feeling of what works and what doesn't. Then I have this collaborator with whom I work with. His name is Rizza, who also came to Milan during Fashion Week, who practically creates my designs into reality. Okay. I think it's so important to have somebody who's able to understand your ideas and realize them. Yeah. That's why it's all about teamwork at the end of the day. And so yeah, for the moment still, it's very like intuitive.
All right. You talked about, well, the do's and the don'ts about fashion. When I think about fashion on a worldwide level, it seems like there's some kind of a huge door and only a very few people get to see what's really behind it. I don't know if it's a misconception I have from maybe movies. But how was like your first approach to fashion? I'd say, again, on a worldwide level. Let's say, for example, when you went to Milan or when you tried to introduce your brand to the world.
So I started right before COVID, and there was very little interest in sustainability. There's a lot of greenwashing. There's still a lot of greenwashing, but it was even less interesting for Italians because I started with the Italian market. I think people still care about a pretty product over, the impact that it makes. Though millennials are like 80% more likely to buy a product with a social impact. And I think through COVID and after COVID, people became a lot more conscious and understand that, having an environmental or social impact is important. Otherwise, this world is gonna, die, and not the world, we're gonna die. Yeah. So we care about us rather than the planet, but that's another story. But yeah, fashion world is horrible. I don't like it at all. It's superficial. So much importance is given to creative directors or people who own the company, like the huge groups. So little importance is given to the people behind the scene. And there's this documentary that I can't remember what it's called right now on Netflix that really portrays the behind the scene of the fashion industry and how much people suffer and how much they make and still don't get anything, and it's completely unacceptable. So that's part of the change I want to be part of, to show that yes, it's important to have a creative director. It's important that there's money behind a company, obviously, otherwise you can't go forward. But the people in it are as important, and you have to give them value, because if it weren't for them, none of this would be possible.
Wow. You talked about the fact that you launched your company prior to COVID. I think it was probably about a year before it started.
A few months.
A few months, yeah. How did you handle it? Because I think for a lot of businesses, obviously, it has been huge consequences. But on the other hand, online retail really started booming during that period of time. How did you manage all that?
So we don't do too much B2C. So online retail, we're going to start this year. Okay. We do a lot of B2B. So we work with the showroom, so agents. Okay. And to be honest, it wasn't so bad. I think we just started. It was one of the first few raffia companies that existed. I can't complain too much because we still had a small production. We still got paid. So I wouldn't say that I can see of. It didn't impact my company way too much. Maybe it could have grown faster if it wasn't for COVID. But I wouldn't say that it was completely negative for us.
Okay. Talking about growth, how has it been since you started 3 years ago?
So yeah, we've grown. We went from, first year producing 1,000 products to now producing over 30,000 products, with more than 300 individuals with whom we work with on a daily basis, with a management team of over 10 people. We have production site in Madagascar. We have a few employees in Italy. We are going to start working with a PR agency in the States this year. So I guess it's going pretty well.
Wow.
So far.
So far, so
So
good.
far, so good. Yeah, there's a bunch of new projects going along. I also think there's a huge buzz when it comes to raffia right now. I mean, there's the Jacquemus fashion show, le raffia. People are really interested in raffia, natural fibers, eco-sustainable projects, social impact projects. So, and we do everything in-house. So we have like full control of our supply chain and value chain, which is super awesome.
Yeah.
We're certified. We got WFTO verified, which is World Fair Trade Organization, which has given us the opportunity to work with luxury brands like Créée, where we're starting a collab soon. Then we were able to do this fashion show during Milan Fashion Week with Stella Jean, which is one of the most renowned designers of Italy. I mean, we're working on a bunch of I think people really like our authenticity and how genuine and transparent we are. They also really like the fact that we work with the certified suppliers, are raffia certified. We produced a raffia documentary. All of our products have QR codes that lead you to the page of the woman who made it.
Wow.
So we really try to be transparent as much as we can. Obviously, you can't be 100%, but what you can do, you do. So, yeah.
Well, that's great. When I hear about the success of the company, one of the things that comes to my mind is, how do you manage all that? Because you have your designing team in Milan, you have a production team here in Madagascar. You said you were about to recruit a PR company in the US. How do you do all that at the same time?
So the design team is here in Madagascar.
Oh.
I want to point that out. It's me and Rizza, the guy with whom I work with. Milan is just communication, marketing, commercial.
Okay.
So that's super important to know, because I think people need to understand that, design is also possible in Madagascar. People have taste, and, we're able to create in Madagascar. How do I manage all that? Honestly, I think having a team who has the same objectives as you and the same values, with whom you share a similar goal, I think that's super important. And then it's a lot of hard work. Honestly, it's you need to be okay with the fact that you're never on vacation. You work all the time. You need to be super motivated. You need to be disciplined. You need to push yourself. You need to deal with problems on a daily basis. You need to understand that there will always be problems, and accept it. So it's a lot of like inner work, and that it's part of the experience of life. So
And like, with all this, how do you actually have time for yourself and for your personal life? How do you manage to balance? Okay,
I do.
cool.
I
Okay.
have that. For the first 2 years, I didn't.
Yeah.
I really prioritized my job, but I do have time for myself too.
Okay, that's cool. Because I think we're part of a generation that, for a long time hasn't really considered the fact that sometimes we might be exhausted. We sometimes might feel a little bit low.
Yeah.
And I think when you actually don't take the time, well, first of all, to realize that you are in a bad situation, and then secondly, that you need to take a little bit of rest, might sometimes lead to
Burnout.
Burns. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been through that. But then you have to be smart and understand that if, you're sick, and how do you go on? Like, how does your business go on? If, the CEO is not there,
Yeah.
how does the business go on? So you need to be a bit smart about it and be like, okay, I need to take a rest because that's the smartest thing I can do right now.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I mean, until last year, it was really tough. We had moments that were really hard. But in general, everyone here leaves at 4:30 p.m., 5 maximum. No one works on the weekends.
Okay.
We get here at 7:30 a.m. Everything goes super smooth. But that's also because we have like super clear objectives. Everything is, you know, the procedures are correct. We work with Olga, who is the production manager. She's an engineer, so she works on optimization.
Yeah.
So all of these are super important to make something work.
If you don't mind, because I think it's something that unfortunately we don't talk about enough is when, because well, I'm a small business owner myself, but obviously it's much more smaller than your company. But I'd say, how did you overcome depression? Because sometimes I feel like with my own company, I try to give 100% of myself. Although I have to admit, I have another professional activity on the side. But still, I try to give 100% of myself to it to make sure that, well, my colleagues are being taken care of. And of course, that, you know, we find growth, obviously. But sometimes in the morning or in the middle of the day, I just start talking to myself and feeling like, I don't know, maybe I'm not being understood by the people around me, or maybe I'm just have a, I don't know, maybe that's what we call burnout. But how did you deal with that? Because
how do I deal with that? It's not
how do you deal with that? Because my thing is
basis.
My thing is sport. But what's your thing?
So I do a lot of inner work. I really, because every morning I wake up with anxiety. And no, it's really hard to, you know, the thing is, when I started, I didn't really understand what I was doing. I was just kind of going along. Yeah. And then boom, like it's become an enterprise and it's growing and it's big, and you know, our chiffre d'affaires is growing. So it's like huge responsibility. So how do you manage all of this? Like, am I going to be capable? Am I capable? I don't think I'm capable. Am I going to fail? Am I fail? Like, you know, you have questions like this running through your head all the time. And, you know, even though I have a really great team, like at the end of the day, you're the one who makes final decisions. You're also the youngest, because I'm the youngest out of all my collaborators. So you need to play a specific role, and it's a lot. So how do I manage all of that? Honestly, I do meditations. I do workshops on inner growth. I really try to improve myself as a person. I also do sports to really help. I love animals. I think they really help with my stress, and it's scientifically proven that they do. So I try to like surround myself with things that try to calm me down, because it's hard. Otherwise, it is rough hard. Sometimes. It's not that easy all the time.
Well, we're just starting 2023. Sorry. What's the next big milestone for your company?
So I think I would like Made for a Woman to become the raffia company. I would love to work with luxury brands, do collaborations with them. We're starting ready-to-wear collection, so apparel, which we're going to be presenting soon with a very high multi-brand store. So I really want to be seen as a luxury brand. Obviously, through brand recognition, brand awareness, it's a work process. Collaborating with high-end brands, because we do quality over quantity. And I really want Made for a Woman to kind of become a model project, which proves that, you know, you can be a factory, yet still do so much good and improve the quality of life of individuals. And that it's it's a success. So by measuring the right KPIs, by working with the right professionals, by contacting the right luxury brands, and really giving the opportunity to other companies around in the fashion industry to really focus and prioritize, the whole behind the scene and change the concept and the model of how the behind the scene works right now.
You mentioned that you wanted to have collabs with high-end luxury brands. If you had to choose one for this year, which one would that be?
So my dream actually came true on the day of my birthday last year.
Oh.
So Chloe wrote to me. They really liked the concept, the idea of the brand. So that's why we got WFTO verified, because to work with them, we had to be certified. Not certified, sorry, verified. So Chloe really is, a huge example, I think, today in the fashion industry, because Gabrielle Hurst, who is the creative director, she's really changing the mindset of, what's cool and what's not. She works with amazing NGOs around the world, produces high-end luxury products, which proves that, you can do beautiful products and still do good, and I think that's visionary. I think she's super impressive. So I'm very, very blessed and proud that we are able to bring forth this collaboration with them.
Wow, that's good. And considering this new collaboration, do you know approximately in which, or maybe in how many countries, your brand Made for Women will be present around the globe?
No, I don't know yet. We're still producing the products, and then the whole marketing part will come later, communication. So we're still working on that.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
You have obviously created something amazing. One of the main target of this podcast is to, empower people and make them realize that you can achieve something better if while being in Madagascar. And in that aspect, what do you think is one of the key things or insights that you have learned as a business owner throughout this 3, well, let's say intensive years?
Oh my God, so much. I think I've learned more now than I ever did in my school years. It's really a school, huh? No, I'm laughing because I'm thinking of, all the things that happen. I think sometimes, I'm a control freak. I like perfection.
Okay.
It doesn't exist. I make products handmade. They're not perfect. They're imperfect, perfect products.
Okay.
So really just go with the flow. Life will bring you where you're meant to go. Especially when you really try to connect intuitively. And I really work with my intuition a lot. And I think it's helped me so much throughout my life. Mm-hmm. So I know it's my point fort. Mm-hmm. Really, when you're feeling stressed or you feel like things are not going the way it's supposed to, honestly, you take a moment, you're like, okay, everything's going to be fine. Honestly, everything's going to be fine. Yeah. The worst thing it can happen is you can die. Yeah. But obviously, other than that, you can come out of anything. So really going with the flow. I think it's also super important to be very clear about your objectives and your goals. It's so easy to lose yourself sometimes. You get really cool projects that don't really fit your mission. Yeah. Or, you meet people who are very influenceable because you're super young. And so, you want to impress. So all these things, it's so important to always bring back and understand, okay, what am I actually doing this for? Am I doing this for pride? Am I doing this for ego? Or am I actually doing this because there's a deeper meaning behind? And I think if you can really, really be strong about that and that, your passion for what you do and the connection you have with the people you work with exists, then honestly, I think everything's going to be all right.
Wow, that's some positive mindset there. I realize when I talk to people that have started their own companies, I'd say 90% of the time, I ask myself, if that person went to college, did the education that she got from that actually really had an impact on how she runs the business? Because to be honest, like while you were answering the previous question, most of what you mentioned was related to, I'd say, soft skills that you don't necessarily learn at school or in college. So what's your take on that? Do you think that it's, well, I'm not saying guys don't go to school or
Yeah, of
college.
course.
That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But if you want to build a business,
Yeah.
you want to be as pragmatic as possible. So if you had to give an advice to the people that are listening or watching this episode, what would that be?
I think you're absolutely right, and I talk about this with my friends and colleagues all the time, that I think school is super old-fashioned and too traditional, and we don't really work on, honestly, what's important in life. You know, there's no self-development. It's about becoming engineers, about becoming a doctor, which is also great, or mathematician. But probably it influenced me a bit because I went to school for like 25 years, obviously. But personally, I would say that it's a lot of waste of money too, because a lot of the things I learned are at home. So being home with a very, disciplined, motivated, passionate, optimistic individuals, that has shaped me completely, I think. And then everything that I do here, it's a school, and I think I'm still at the beginning. I really don't want to think about all the things that are going to happen. But it's, this is the school, is like being with people, learning how to manage people.
That's the thing.
That's the thing.
That's the thing.
It's the hardest thing, learning how to manage people.
I'm 100%. I 100% agree with what you're saying, because when I was in my last year in college, I thought I was the man. I thought I knew everything in terms of leadership, management. I thought I knew it all. And then you start bringing people on board, and, you start talking to them, asking them to, reach the company's KPI and all. And damn, that's tough, because as you said, they don't teach you that.
No.
You might learn a little bit about,
Public
the whole
speaking.
theory that goes behind it, the management of
Exactly.
whoever that is. But then when you're on the field, that's a complete different thing. I'd say that's one of my last questions, following the previous one, is do you said you do a lot of inner work. If, for example, let's say I'm in my 20s, I currently go to college, and I want to launch a business after I graduate. Do you have any recommendation for that person? Whether that be like, maybe you have a book to recommend, or maybe a mindset, or maybe something else. Can you share with us maybe anything that you think would be helpful for that person?
So I think it's really important to understand why you want to do a certain thing. So understanding, is it because I want to please other people? Is it because I want to be rich? Is it because I don't think I'm good enough? I want to prove to people I'm worth it. So really understanding the actual reason why you want to do something. Because if the reason is a bit superficial, in my opinion, I don't think you're going to be happy. And I don't know how well it's going to work, or for how long it's going to work. So I think the intention is so important. Having the right intention for you, the intentions that I'm creating, are they positive? Are they creating a positive impact, or are they not? Because let me tell you, being an entrepreneur is really hard in the long run. It might be exciting at the beginning, people like your stuff, your project is interesting, but then things slow down, and it's kind of like slowly like goes up, right?
Yeah.
And so how are you going to manage that period where things are not exciting anymore? There's not that adrenaline that, motivate you at the beginning. And that goes again through understanding your real intention, but not only is having discipline, having a lot of passion for what you're doing. Because if you don't, you're going to be miserable. Honest to God. Being motivated surrounding yourself by the right people, and being optimistic. You know, being pessimistic is never going to help you. So if by nature you're already that, I think that's something that you really need to work on, because being an entrepreneur and being pessimist not only is going to bring you down, but it's going to bring the people that you work with down. And you have to be an example for them. So I think that's, I would say that for the moment.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much, Eileen, for the time that you've given us. And well, I wish you and your company a whole lot of success for the coming years.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.